Let's put me at 7.5. That's where I wanna be, right down in my hole of pee, Baruba, Baruba. Ooh, I
I
wanna
was like,
take
is he doing Kokomo? I'm trying to figure it out.
it. When in doubt, it always comes back to the Kokomo.
Aruba.
Aruba. You're just exhausted after a long day, and you sprawl out on your bed like, Aruba, Jamaica. Ooh, I wanna take it. Bermuda. You have a little mouse in your pocket that does that part. If you had a mouse in your pocket that followed you to school every day and like sat on the train with you and like went on adventures around New York with you, what would the mouse's name be? And why would it be Alan? Hello and welcome to Chats, a television podcast, Season 5, DaisyChatz. My name is Alan, and I'm joined by the man who cans the crap and sells it to the tourists with a smile. It's Magellan.
That's me, baby. How's it going?
Can it
dude?
up. Hello. How you doing? How are things?
Things are groovy. They're doing some construction on my building, and so if you hear just a light sound of a big old drill, that's what's happening right now. But
if you hear the gentle sound of a big man named Rick
yeah,
telling somebody else to bring him the damn jackhammer, just
Yeah.
put that behind you. It's not important.
if you hear the sweet ocean breeze wafting by, the jackhammer noise, that's what's going on right now. But I'm still on summer break
Hey.
because I'm a freaking teacher. This is what they don't tell you is everybody else in real life doesn't get to have summer anymore except for the teachers. So, be a teacher.
It's summer, baby. You have your backwards hat on, and you're ready to fucking party.
Yeah, that's right.
Dink.
It's a vine.
Yeah.
A vine.
It wouldn't be chats if we didn't reference vines. You and I both did a cool thing recently that I briefly wanted to shout out.
Yeah, we did. What did we do?
Fuck you. Wait, what did we do? Wait, what? We scrolled back on our Facebook messages and we found out how we met.
Oh God.
I mean, we don't need to get too much into it because like there's some nasty mess in there.
Yeah.
But it was legitimately really cool to see the tiny budding seeds of what would become this podcast 8 years ago.
Yeah, just us in high school being like, hey, today I watched this movie and here's a paragraph of what I thought about it. And then the other person being like, huh, interesting. Anyway, here's this movie that I watched.
And my thoughts on it.
There's no dialogue.
It's just like a dumping of thought, like huge walls of text.
Yeah.
Just being like, I need you to know about the thing that I watched and why I did or didn't like it. It's like important that I convey this to you.
Yeah, it's
consistently.
sweet. It's sweet.
It was really charming. And then just the little capper was that we found one message where we were like, we should start a podcast.
Yeah, in high school, like junior year or something.
You're like, my goal is to have a podcast started by the end of high school. And like, hey,
Yeah, shoot for the stars so you land among the clouds kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We did the damn thing. We had pilots by that point. We have like
in high school? No, we didn't.
Do we not? Was it? I don't know. I think it was around
No,
like 13 and 14 was when we were doing piloted
in
stuff.
College.
But we've definitely like worked on projects in that time, and all that stuff was like the progenitor to chats. None of it's ever going to be released. None of it is really that good. Maybe it's all part of the grand narrative of this dang show that we're doing.
I recommend that you do that, people out there. You go, just pick a person that you know, and you're like, I understand our relationship, and then just scroll all the way back to the very first things that you said to each other, and either you'll be like, yeah, I do understand our relationship, or wow, I totally forgot that this is how we communicated.
Yeah, there were moments in there where I was like genuinely surprised that neither of us was like, what the fuck? Like, what, dude? Just very like grumpy nerds.
Yeah.
But anyways, these are two grumpy nerds talking about pushing daisies.
That's right.
This week. We watched season 2, episode 8, Comfort Food, and season 2, episode 9, The Legend of Merle McQuoddy. First, we're going to be discussing season 2, episode 8, Comfort Food, which was written by Douglas Petrie, who I believe was a writer on Buffy the Vampire Slayer, actually.
Yeah, that sounds familiar, that name.
Yeah. I thought about that, and then I looked it up, and yeah, he worked on some Buffy stuff.
Shoot.
Which is pretty sweet. He also now works on, like, the Marvel shows, which seems like a good, a good upgrade from all of this stuff. He worked on 55 episodes of Buffy around, like, season 7. Oh, no.
Well, he was a writer from season 3 through season 7, it looks like.
3 through 7. Right. He wasn't, yeah, I was just looking at the last things that he worked on. But just cool. It was also directed by Peter Lauer, and it aired December 3rd, 2008. Magellan, what happened this episode?
The facts were these. Ned brings back to life Colonel Licken. I think in the episode preview last week I said Lincoln, but it's Licken, like finger licking good.
Delicious.
Back to life Colonel Licken, who was mysteriously deep-fried to death. His world-famous original recipe has gone missing, and Licken asks Ned to find who stole it. Alan, what'd you think of this one?
We got ourselves a KFC murder mystery on our hands, bud.
Yes.
Very pushing daisies. I'm really happy with the average crime, like A plot in these episodes this season, because it feels like the show is doing everything it wants to and firing on all cylinders, with the characters and the jokes and the dialogue. Really hitting home, though, that this season is a lot more sad than the first one. Because I think the B plot with Chuck and her dad in both of these episodes kind of boils up really quickly, and it contrasts really nicely with the, like, bright green and like gray and all the colors of the, like, chicken or of the cooking festival, and then meanwhile relationship problems 2.0. So it's there's a lot to tackle, but what did you think in general about it?
This episode, in one plot, I was having so much innocent, delightful fun seeing Ned and Olive work together at this comfort food festival, or competition. And it felt like that plot itself was a kind of comfort food that I was stress eating because I was so emotionally wrecked by the plot where Chuck is, like, lying to Ned and full of guilt throughout the whole episode. I can't stress enough how stark the emotional contrast was for me between the mystery plot and Chuck's plot.
Yeah, it's like the biggest difference. As one across the series gets darker, the other one continues at its, like, season 1 light and fun pace.
Yeah.
Like a dude falling into a vat of boiling, like, chicken grease. Magellan, you can't do things like that in the middle of the recording. I'm going to call you out on this.
No, don't.
No, Magellan just made some words that we wrote in the notes really big. We'll talk about it. And I'm gonna make you regret your sins. But anyways, speaking of positivity, I like that this episode started with Ned as a kid at the boarding school, getting caught. Basically, I think it was this episode where they said he would bake in the middle of the night to kind of, like, feel better. Like, he says stress baking instead of stress eating. Like, he does that, and he gets caught by his friend, and then instead of getting in trouble, he just kind of starts, like, a baking group with his school friends, and everybody just, like, bakes together, and they all eat food together, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
Really hammering home that Ned finds comfort in helping other people and in like, routine and hobbies that he always does.
Yeah. And then he gets caught and it gets shut down, and the narrator sets out a theme that is, you could argue, is kind of over or explored through the rest of the episode, which is, I didn't get the exact wording, but essentially he says, even a forkful of immediate gratification can lead to unforeseen consequences.
Right.
And that's what this episode is about, is if you give into an urge of some kind and indulge yourself in a certain way, what are the ramifications of that choice?
Yeah, and ramifications definitely coming through in this episode. I really just wish... I think this one would honestly be in my like top favorite episodes if the villain motivation was good.
Yeah. Should we just start there?
Yeah, because I think that's the easiest thing to just get to and finish.
Yeah.
So the person murdered this week was Mr. Licken.
Colonel Licken.
Colonel Licken, please. And he's the guy who runs this like cooking contest festival and the founder of Colonel Licken's Southern Fried Chicken.
Yeah, he doesn't run the festival.
Or yeah, he's just there.
He's just there. He's one of the contestant guys.
The Comfort Food Cook-Off is the name of the place, which is a good name. And he's obviously doing like the Colonel Sanders things with the necktie and all that.
Yeah, being like maybe racist.
Yes, and having like a weird kind of Southern accent. Like definitely is supposed to be a Southern accent, but doesn't sound like the character doing it is from the South at all.
Yeah.
He's found with his whole body fried in oil.
Yeah.
And gets resurrected and goes like, I'm like delicious, and then like eats a piece of himself before he re-dies, which is like, and he mentions that he had a secret recipe to his chicken in his pocket that was stolen from him when he was pushed into the vat. And as with most murders on the show, he didn't see the person who did it, but he has his suspicions. So again, the person being resurrected doesn't really give anything that helpful. It's more the crime scene that ends up being helpful in the end. At the end of the day,
right. Well, the thing that he gives that's helpful is that he says it was a murder, which Ned didn't think it was.
Right. Everyone said it was a heart attack.
Yeah. And so we kind of run around. Ned and Olive are working together on this one. I think this is the only case where it's just the two of them, and where Emerson's not involved in any way. The motivation is simply to help people and to solve a murder and not to get money. So they go around the cook-off and they're kind of suspecting different people. So there's like the lady who runs the Muffin Buffalo, who's sort of mean, and I think maybe it's her. It turns out she's sabotaging people, but she wasn't the murderer. And then they think maybe it's like this waffle guy, this like German, well, I guess he's Belgian. That's the idea.
The Nazi guy?
Yeah. Is that what was going on there?
Well, that's what he says. That's what he says his character is, which is bizarre. Like he goes like, I'm the waffle Nazi. But they don't lean into the imagery, but they definitely call him that, and it's really strange. That actor I just laughed at because he's the guy that had in Mulholland Drive who sees the creepy thing, and then it's like the scariest jump scare of all time, and I'm still mad at David Lynch for doing that to me. Personally,
what else have I seen him in? Because I've seen him in other things where his face is like disconcertingly large.
Patrick Fischler is the actor's name who we're talking about.
Okay, Patrick
Fischler. He was in Lost. I know you didn't watch Lost though. He's like, again, just this show has all the good character actors. He was in Mad Men.
Who is he in Twin Peaks? That might be what it is.
Was he in Twin Peaks?
Yeah.
Duncan Todd. I don't. Oh, he was in Twin Peaks season 3. You haven't seen this.
Oh, well then.
Yeah.
What do I know? Oh, Mad Men.
Yeah,
I know him from Mad Men.
Right. He's great, but I don't know what's the point of doing a weird like Nazi thing in the middle of this episode? It just seems like a really weird choice. Because all of the Bakers have like a character. I would honestly love to play like a Phoenix Wright thing or something, a case where they go to this place and everyone is like a different
super fun
baking type. Like they have the rivals that Olive is like, I need to beat this lady, and she's clearly the first like red herring murder suspect. And she's pretty good. Apparently this whole situation is a crossover with another Brian Fuller show called Wonder Falls. I think that character, Marion Marie Beadle is her name, is in Wonder Falls. Like the character and the actress and all that.
Wonder Falls. I've never heard of this.
I don't think I've heard of it at all. I just know about it from reading
about it. It's only
about
like 6 episodes long.
Yeah.
Episode 6 is called Muffin Buffalo.
Yeah, there you go. So he's pulling from like a universe that he's already kind of started to work on.
I
But,
see what you're saying. Gotcha.
But anyways, there's a lot of like false leads, and the guy who is like, is he the judge of the whole thing?
Yeah, or he's the organizer and he runs it, and he's probably one of the judges. Yeah.
Right, Leo Burns, and he's played by Eric Stonestreet, who many of us will probably know from Modern Family, amongst other things. I think he's also been on Broadway. He's very good.
Mm-hmm.
And he's on like CSI and a bunch of cable stuff. He was the source of my problems with this episode.
Yeah.
Because he's wheelchair bound. He's a very large man, and they don't comment on it at all. Really, other than the fact that he like enjoys food and likes talking about food. That's fine. I think you've seen plenty of like, guy is a food judge and is also really fat. Like, that's just a thing that happens in real life and in shows a lot. But his motive. So we end up finding out through all of this stuff that he's the one.
He's the killer. Yeah.
The killer, right? Who killed Colonel Licken because what was the exact thing? Like, what was the reason that he got mad?
So
the facts were these.
What the narrator ends up telling us is the story of how one day he like went to the Colonel's restaurant and got some chicken and really thought it was super tasty. So he kept getting it and he got fat. And
he got obesity, diabetes, and night blindness, which is like a lot.
So he's taking revenge on the Colonel, murdering him because he's fat. Right. Which, first of all, is like, yikes, pushing daisies. I'm not really willing to accept that as a motive for murder. And also, it doesn't totally line up with like why, with the immediacy of the event of murdering someone. You know what I mean? Like, if he's kind of premeditating and thinking like, I'm going to murder this Colonel, then why is he sloppily pushing him into a vat of oil just randomly on that day?
Maybe that was recent that he became fat, and then
that's not how gaining weight works. Like, that happens over a long period of time.
That's true. I think maybe then this was just like one of his first times judging the cook-off, and he's like this was his opportunity presenting itself.
Yeah, I guess so.
But I do agree the timeline doesn't make a lot of sense. The motive makes no sense, especially because like this is a show about like life and relationships and love and all of that stuff. And almost all of our villain motivations so far have been like either related to those things or related to like money and capital and like greed.
Yeah.
Motivation of like bitter revenge that has nothing to do with other people and just like your food made me overweight is like, there's nothing to it. Holds no water. And it just makes it seem like you got fat and now that's the worst thing that could happen and you ruined my life and I can't fix this and I'm just like, it feels like they're consigning him to like, well, I guess you're a villain now because that happened to you.
Yeah, and it has the assumption that underlies it is like, of course we all agree that being obese is such a terrible fate that it would murder. But it would lead someone to murder someone.
Right. They don't say like he was a shitty person with a tendency for revenge and then this guy set him off. It's just like he was a regular, handsome looking skinny dude. Yeah. And then he loved chicken.
And he got fat.
Fat. God forbid. And now he must murder this person.
Right.
Who ran the company that he chose to eat from. Like, just everything about it makes no sense. It's really bad, to be honest with you. Like, sorry, I just got you and me mixed up. Jesus. And it doesn't go anywhere. I don't love it. It's not great.
Yeah.
The way they find him is that his wheelchair's tracks are in the like grease and blood near the scene of the murder. I'm like, wow, great, you did it.
Yeah, there's also some jokes that they make that are not great. Like Olive makes a joke. What does she say? I'm trying to find it. Search for the word. She says, she's talking about him and she says, he's a dreamboat. Well, tugboat, but still.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's like, yeesh. Yeesh. No, why are you punching down, pushing daisies?
Punching straight down in a show that tries its best to not do that.
Right. Like, it's a show that's about people who are sort of weird and ostracized and not ostracizing them in the way that society does. But then it does that with people who are overweight.
Just a couple weeks ago, Ned sat down with the killer and was like, "Man, I feel you. Like, I understand where you're coming from." And that's a suspect, and was like, "Man, that's unfortunate that your situation is like that, but I understand.
Yeah.
And we can work through this." Whereas this is like, "No, that guy sucks. Get out of here. Bye."
Right.
No fatties allowed. Just bums me out.
Yeah, me too.
There's a lot. Speaking of things that bum you out, there's a lot more to this episode.
Yep.
I have a lot of stuff in here about how I well, first of all, like the Lily and Vivian stuff, starts the episode. With we get this cute scene of Ned and Chuck are in bed together, but they have plastic wrap around Ned so that they don't touch. And then they resurrect her dad, and they agree that Ned gets 30 seconds with him, and then Chuck gets the other 30, and he leaves her alone. And then we cut to the scene where Dwight Dixon goes to Vivian's house, and Lily answers the door, and just blasts him in the chest with a shotgun. Just kills them. Well,
that was at his hotel room.
Oh, was that at his hotel room? Sorry.
Yeah.
I just remember somebody opening a door. That's why. Yeah, she just shoots the man. Which I think Aunt Lily with a gun is cool.
Yeah.
And I think this episode actually does a good job of reminding us that, hey, when you introduce a gun to a show, people start dying immediately. Right. I don't think I've mentioned this before, but one of my my favorite things about Lost ever is that nobody gets hurt or has any problems at all on the show other than, hey, we crashed on an island, until somebody discovers the box of guns, and then people start dying the next episode. And it really cool. It feels like the show making a point of it's fine until we have the ability to kill each other with one pull of a trigger.
Yeah.
Because everybody with a gun in this episode is dangerous, basically. But Lily does that, and we learned that Chuck didn't let Ned.
It's important to note that was a dream. That was an imagined killing.
Right.
Lily
True.
Killing Dwight. Yes, there are guns,
but it's with intent. Yeah.
Although the counter to what you're saying is that actually nobody in this episode or the next episode dies because of a gun.
But it's the threat of dying with a gun, the reveal that Dwight was pointing a sniper rifle at them in the graveyard.
It ratchets up the tension, but still, nobody's getting shot.
True, and she would do it if she could.
Right.
They say when they visit their house, or Ned visits the house, and he's like, "Where's Dwight Dixon?" And she's like, "Hopefully 6 feet under or whatever." She would do it.
Yeah,
and she probably has that. I think she has that gun. But yeah, we find out that Chuck didn't actually kill her dad. She whispered to him "Hey, wear this glove," and then when Ned tries to touch you, just play dead. And she pulls a Ned and keeps her dad alive.
Yeah. And then she secretly has him alive for the whole episode. And it makes me very nervous the entire time that she's lying to Ned. Because Ned, so first of all, she and Ned have a conversation at the beginning of the episode where he's like, "Hey, is everything okay? Are things weird?" He says, "Are we weird now because I did it with your dad?" There are a few lines where it's phrased as if Ned had sex with her dad.
Yes, I did notice
that. I thought that was funny. And then he says, "You don't have to tell me if you don't want to. I mean, you do eventually." That's just relationships. That's just how all relationships work.
Right.
I know that there's something you're not telling me. Eventually you will have to tell me. For right now, you don't have to. But that such a real, again, if we think about Ned Chuck plots being about things that happen in long-term relationships, this idea of, I'm going to conceal this one thing from my partner because I'm waiting for the right moment, or I think that it would hurt their feelings if I told them or something. That is just so real.
Yeah.
I know that I've been in that situation before. I've had that happen to me before. And so it's really easy to empathize with Chuck in this situation and put yourself in her shoes and feel the anxiety of her realizing like, oh shit, I should have told Ned about this yesterday.
Right.
And
I should have, like, immediately.
And I still haven't told him. And now, if I tell him now, well, now he knows that I didn't tell him before. And the longer I wait, the worse it's going to get. But it's not going to get any easier. I viscerally felt that as I was watching this plot, which made it captivating, but also made it like heart pounding.
Right. It's the thing is, like, that stuff is all really good. It's all the Ned and Chuck relationship problems, relatable, big stuff. And it's that. Meanwhile, between all of this Chuck and Ned drama that's really heartbreaking, we also have Chuck speaking to her dad for the first time in years.
Yeah.
And it's partly his performance, that actor, whose name I don't have handy, but just like feels like he knows that he has been resurrected, and every word he's getting out is like precious, and like he didn't deserve any of this.
Yeah.
Like I think Chuck says a line when she's actually lying to Ned about the like whole, like, he's like, oh, how did you manage in that 30 seconds to have a conversation? And she's like, oh, well, it was tough, but the way I justified it to myself was I said every second of this was one that I wasn't going to get originally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is all extra. Josh Randall is the actor who plays Charles.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, she just, or I guess he plays the young one. Anyways, it just all feels so like, this is the last time I'm going to get to talk to you. And like this all means a lot. And he calls her by her childhood nickname.
Yeah.
And they talk about their big plans to go on adventures and like travel the world together. And it all just means a whole lot. Like, I'm such a sucker for like parents drama, sad stuff.
Yeah, me too.
It always fucks me up. And it just, yeah. And then her and him being honestly like a really strong character and a very motivated character despite being dead for so long, because he's like, I don't want to go back, I don't want to have to hide forever, like I'll wear these bandages, but like I should be able to live my life now.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm stuck here, and I can't remember if this is in this episode or the second one, but like the only reason we're stuck here and we follow his rules is because he brought you back. You don't have to follow his rules.
Yeah. You don't have
Ned
to
doesn't have to be Ned doesn't have to be your anchor to the world. You can just go. In fact, you'd be safer if you went, because you can't be killed. Or you can, but you can't be, like, instantly touched and killed again.
Yeah. The thing that's so disconcerting, and we'll talk about this a lot more when we talk about the second episode, but what's so disconcerting about him as a character is that he is so clear-minded and blunt.
Yeah.
And completely reasonable, too. Like, yeah, some of the things that he and Ned do in the second episode, like fight each other, are ridiculous. But there's not a single thing that he says that I disagree with. You know?
Right. He's talking about, like, you know, we had these plans. Why does coming back is our chance to do those things.
Right.
It's not like, I want to like mess up your life. Like, he's not being the shitty parent that like hates her boyfriend. He does, but not because he's her boyfriend or whatever. It's just because like he's keeping you here and you shouldn't have to stay here.
Yeah.
Because so much of Chuck's childhood arc is about wanting to explore the world and then having it cut short by death.
Mm-hmm.
And so her father's argument is like, well, now it's not cut short, so go do it. You don't need this guy anymore. And it's just, this episode makes me so sad.
Yeah, it's a lot. The other aspect of this plot with Chuck is that she's trying to figure out who was killed when she kept her father alive. So she and Emerson go on a search through the graveyard to figure it out. They discover that it was Dwight Dixon who was killed, and that he had a sniper rifle prepared to shoot her and Ned. And so it was pretty lucky that Dwight Dixon died. This is another moment where the show backs away from us really considering the moral implications of letting someone live and someone else dying. because when Ned let Chuck live, the person who died was that funeral parlor owner guy who was stealing stuff from people. So we're supposed to kind of say like, well, that's okay. When you put people on a scale, she's a better person, so she should be alive.
That's fine.
And then with this, it's like, well, when you put Dwight Dixon and the dad on a scale, like the dad's the better person, so it makes sense that he's alive. It's not a problem. And so the show doesn't really grapple or have Chuck grapple with the real moral question of like, she does a little bit, that question of, oh, the person who could have died could have been like, a young girl like Chuck who was visiting her dad's grave or something.
Or like an old lady who was like on her last leg and was going to visit her kids for the last time. Like she totally has all of that whole thought process. But then the show is like, no, but the guy who was killed was like the worst guy in the world, like the perfect murder target.
It's a good thing for you that you did this and that he's dead.
Which, I think it kind of robs that, like, because we don't get a lot of that. We intentionally don't get a lot of people being alive for more than 60 seconds. And so now the first one was brushed off, and the second one is like even more so, like, considered just a net good.
Right. It raises questions for me about what exactly the deal was with Dwight Dixon. And I guess we just might not ever know why he like wanted the pocket watches or whatever.
I mean, we might like learn more about it posthumously for him.
Yeah.
But we're not going to get it from him anymore. And it's a bummer that Stephen Root's already off the show. That's like a sad face situation. He could get resurrected, I guess.
Yeah, for a little bit, yeah.
But yeah, all of that stuff to me just feels like, oh wait, the show still wants me to be interested and excited in like the Ned and Chuck's dad backstory, like weird drama that's underlying the whole show, and I am not interested.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I have. Any stray notes, bud?
Yeah, I got a few. Let's see. Some lines and other things that I enjoyed. In the moment where Lily is imagining murdering Dwight, she asks him, like, what's your story? Or, like, why are you doing what you're doing? And he goes, it all began when I was conceived in the sweat and sawdust of a traveling carnival.
Yeah. Very good line.
Her dad's still alive. Just the like, mummy wrappings are very scary.
Yep.
Yeah. And a smart way to kind of keep the dad face sort of anonymous in that Charlie Brown way. Ned gets mad at Olive for baking with hate because you're supposed to bake with love.
Olive, you're baking with hate. Yeah.
Revenge is a dish best served cold, and these are like warm pies or whatever the hell.
Right.
Says.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
As they're talking to the widow of Colonel Licken, the food place in the background is Restin' Pizza.
Which is my favorite place in Brooklyn to get a slice.
Hey, yo, a Brooklyn slice of pizza. When Chuck, like, asks for Emerson's help, and then she's so thankful and she goes to kiss him on the cheek, Emerson says, don't be pecking me, woman. That's the peck of cahoots, which we are definitely not in. Even though they are totally in cahoots.
Super duper in cahoots.
Yeah. The narrator talking about Dwight Dixon about to shoot Chuck and Ned says, as is traditional, he decided to put an end to the thing he did not understand.
Womp.
That's a good line. Just for
Very
life.
good line. Mm-hmm.
The thing that part of the plot that we didn't talk about here. So if the theme of this episode is like indulging in gratification and the consequences that can have, clearly when you're thinking about the murderer, he's indulging in the gratification of like tasty fried chicken. And I guess the consequences that can have are obesity, diabetes, night blindness, and murder. This episode is positing. If you think about Chuck, she's giving into the gratification of like being able to be with her dad and keep her dad alive. And the consequences of that are lying to her boyfriend and endangering the relationship and also killing a guy that it was good to kill. The other person who I think is indulging in gratifications in this episode is Olive, because for a while she's been kind of distancing herself from her feelings for Ned, but this is the first episode in a bit where she's acknowledging and accepting the fact that she's still in love with him. And so there are a few moments here where I was really charmed by Olive's performance. Like when Ned says, like, "Oh, we're gonna have to solve this thing together," she just seems really excited about that. And throughout the whole episode, she's just so eager to be on Ned's team in a way that endeared me to Olive. Because I think earlier in the show, I was starting to get kind of tired of everything that Olive did being about liking Ned and him not liking her back. But in this episode, there was some strength to her acknowledging it, saying like, you know what, I've been trying to deny this and hide it, but I just need to accept the fact that I like him and I can't help that. And maybe it's not going to be a thing, but it's just part of who I am. And there's power in being able to admit that to yourself. So it ends with her doing this like over the top musical number.
It's a Bangles song.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes off of Vivian also in this episode has the line, "Lying to yourself about love never works," which just like solidifies like Olive can pretend as much as she wants that we don't like me and Ned is not going to be a thing and I don't care anymore and it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
But end of the day, it, you know, she knows it bothers her and there's a part of her that will forever want it to work.
Yeah.
And she can't ignore that. It's healthy to address those feelings.
Right. Rather than try to deny them and put them in a box.
Like after the musical number, Ned, she keeps saying like, say my name in the song. And then he goes, Olive. And the last time he does it, he goes, Olive. And she goes, what's up? And he goes, sorry to leave you with a mess. And she goes, I'm used to the mess.
Well, I think even he says Chuck.
Right. Oh, no, you're right. Well, he comes in and out more than once.
Yeah.
But at one point he does say Chuck, and then she says, I'm used to the mess, which is like, man, I hate how this is. At first I was like, Olive's a bummer. It's a bummer that Olive is so sad. And now I'm like, damn it, I relate to Olive. Damn it.
Yeah. Yep.
This stinks. This feeling of like, no, we can make this, like, this can totally still work. I know this can't, but like,
Yeah.
Got the good emotions here on DaisyChatz, the podcast about pushing daisies.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where we are at the end of Comfort Food. This week, we received an email from our buddy Dax. He says, greeting, Alan and Magellan.
We have to share that one between the two of us.
Exactly. We have one greeting, and that's it for the week.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I'm still super busy and trying to keep up with the pod, but I just got finished with Season 2, Episode Frescorts, so I'm guessing you guys might finish before I do. So I wanted to send in a quick email to let you know I love this show. Pushing Daisies, not us. Pushing Daisies is fantastic. I'm only watching each episode once because of so little time available, and even then I only get about 20 or 15 minutes and then have to wait. So I haven't been taking notes like in the past to make big comments, but overall I'd say the biggest standout of the series has to be the entire cast. It would be easy to say the cast of characters is what makes this show, but more specifically I think it's the actors and actresses that make it so good. Lee Pace was a guy I knew mainly from Wonderfalls, and then made fun of when I heard he was going to play Ronan in Guardians of the Galaxy, because he's a skinny, scrawny dude, but he nailed that role, and does so here as well. And Anna Friel I had never heard of, and still don't think I've seen her anywhere else, but she plays Chuck so matter-of-factly, with humor and heart. I find her character the most believable of them all. Shy McBride I've been a fan of ever since Boston Public, and always enjoy when he pops up in a cameo in movies and such. Susie Kurtz, one of the aunts I remember all the way back in the days from Sisters, probably before your time, and from Huff. Then, of course, the immortal Ellen Green. Let me be frank here, I honestly think the very first crush I ever had in my life as a wee little kid was on Audrey from the movie Little Shop of Horrors, played by Miss Green herself. Mm-hmm. So, of course, I love seeing her on screen. Aside from loving the cast, I like everything else with the show, too. The storytelling's fun, the colors and sets are fun, the plots are fun. It may not be a nail-biting, arc-driven epic saga, but dang it, it's just a good time. And really, that's what I look for most in a show. Something entertaining before anything else. Take care and keep up the wonderful podcasting. Aww.
Yeah, very sweet.
Yeah, imagine a show where the cast is just good. Like, what a thing. Who would have thunk it, right?
I just watched Little Shop of Horrors for the first time yesterday.
Wow, which
2 days
one?
ago. The movie, the one she's in, the Frank Oz musical movie.
Oh, like the 70s one?
Uh-huh. Or no, the 80s one?
Yes.
Yeah. With Rick Moranis.
70s one is the old one. Is she good? Is she actually like crush worthy?
Yeah, I mean, the point of the character is that she's sort of like ditzy cutesy in a way that I think nowadays I wouldn't have a crush on that kind of character, but I'm sure if I saw this movie when I was younger, I would have been like, oh my God, Audrey. It's kind of like, it's a similar performance to Vivian, but like a little younger and a little airier, I guess.
Does she look similar where you were like, oh, hey, that's Vivian?
Well, she's wearing like a bright blonde wig. So it's a little different. I mean, you should just look up Audrey Little Shop.
Wow, she was just a Venus flytrap. Interesting. Weird movie.
Yeah, she's just a big plant.
Oh God, the Little Shop of Horrors wiki makes your mouse cursor into Audrey too. Oh God, I hate it. Oh yeah, she's like cute. Yeah. I got you.
Yeah.
I suddenly understand this.
Yeah.
I think though referring to like this show has good characters, I agree with that mostly. It is really disappointing to me how much modern television forgets that all like you can just have good characters and get by on that and like have them talking be the interesting part. Like I think if Pushing Daisies was made today with a modern sensibility, it would be so much more about like explaining Ned's powers and getting even way deeper into like the dad stuff and the like weird dad lore that we don't like so much. Because I'll be honest with you, as someone who like does watch a lot of event television these days, so much of it is about the like answers that we could find as opposed to like the value in looking for those answers and the value in the questions and the people seeking them out in the universe.
That's a good point. It's all about like setting you up for the next thing to be curious about, and then we're gonna answer it for you and then give you something else to be curious about. But it's just about like getting you to watch the next chapter.
Right. It's a very it's a method of storytelling that doesn't have a lot of like long legs. Like I remember specifically I'm thinking of a sci-fi show from like 3 or 4 years ago. It's not even that old. Maybe it's still running. And it was about a bunch of people living on like an Arctic base. It was kind of like The Thing, except there was like a virus and then one of them made the virus.
I know what you're talking about. I don't remember what it's called, but
I watched that show like
Andromeda
every week.
Strain? No, that's a different thing.
No, that's
What is that called?
I'll be able to find one. Antarctica show, sci-fi.
Something like black.
It's Helix.
Black matter. Oh yeah. Okay, Helix.
Black matter.
I'm thinking of dark matter.
Yeah,
which is a different show.
Every time I'd watch Helix, I was just like, oh, this is gonna get like really cool. This is gonna be like this is about to get great, and then it just wouldn't. Like I just realized after all these answers were presented that I don't know who any of these characters are or why I should care about them or.
Yeah, I mean it's also a fundamentally different genre. To be fair, like we are watching an episodic procedural, and so that has a different sensibility than a serialized show. But it does seem more and more like shows that are being produced nowadays are serialized in a way that is not actually beneficial to enjoying the show as like a, I don't know, as an artistic experience.
No, I think there's just fewer episodic procedurals also.
Yeah, which I don't know. I mean, I think we also kind of like we tend to talk down the idea of something being a procedural or like monster of the week. So it's hard to know exactly what the right balance is, but it is somewhere in the middle of the two things.
Right. I just want this focus on characters that Dax mentions to come back to all modern genres of television. I think like focusing on the people that carry your show is like essential. But yeah, that was our email this week. Thank you, Dax, for that one. You too can send us emails if you head over to chatspod@gmail.com and type that into your browser or whatever.
Yeah, get that in your frickin' browser.
We were in frickin' middle school, my guy. One of my favorite things, like when editing, is listening to like when we do like funny voices and hearing them sped up at like 1.6 times speed. And that part was very good. You're like, we were in freaking middle school, my guy. But I digress. Let's take it to a music break, and we will be back to discuss The Legend of Merle McQuoddy.
Welcome back to DaisyChatz. The second episode we watched this week was Season 2, Episode 9, The Legend of Merle McQuoddy. It was written by Chad Gomez Creasy and Dara Resnick Creasy, directed by Lawrence Trilling, and it aired on December 10th, 2008. Alan, what happened in this episode?
The facts were these. The keeper of the Papin County Lighthouse is found dead, and it's up to the pie holers to discover how and why. I want to start by saying that it's like they're trying to make fetch happen. They're trying to make the term the pie holders happen.
I had that same feeling.
They say it in the episode, I think, too. And I was like, no, you can't. No.
Yeah, no.
They're the Scooby Gang. A little bit of cross-show crossover. Yeah, I mean, in general, I thought this episode was pretty cool. I really like the tone and like the setting a lot. It reminds me of like Hardy Boys or just like any dime store novel you read as a kid or like get from the library.
Yeah.
Like East Coast, Boardwalk.
Had that kind of young adult. I think partially because of the son being an instigator and like them coming to the mystery. It did have that sort of YA novel feeling to it.
Yeah, and there are honestly not a lot of kids on Pushing Daisies. Not that often.
Yeah.
He's one of the younger characters who like makes a difference and isn't just like someone's kid. But I feel like it's also just like the B plot is a continuation of the last episode. Like you kind of have to watch it with what we've had before.
True.
But I'm curious. So what did you think of the whole thing?
Well, before we do that, I have a question for you, just on the topic of pie holers.
All right.
Do you have a favorite name for like a group in a show? You know what I mean?
Yes, I really like the Scoobies. I think about that one a lot.
From Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes.
That was something where at first it bothered me, but then over time it's like, this is wrong in a way that's very fun.
Yeah. Lost, the show I reference too often, had like a group of people that it followed for one season and then introduced a second group of people that came from the other half of the plane because the plane split in half, and they were called the Tailies. And I always giggle at them because it's like they're all very serious. Lost is not like a goofy show, but it was just like here, and they never say it in the show. It was entirely like a community name for them. Like Scooby's only gets mentioned once or twice in Buffy, but is like definitely how the fandom refers to them. And the Tailies was the same thing where I'm just like, oh, this is like a cute name for like the people who lost most of their family in the plane crash. Did you have one?
It's one of those questions where I asked it and I didn't really have a good answer.
I mean, if you think of one, you can let me know or whatever. But
like there are cool ships in sci-fi that you can kind of be like the Moya crew. Like that's nice, but that's not really the same thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say Firefly, but we don't talk about Firefly here.
We could. I mean, that could be our next show if you want.
No, I do not.
You don't? You don't like Firefly?
No. I don't want to learn that I'm not going to like Firefly anymore.
I see. Because the last time you saw it, you were like 4 or something?
Yeah, 4, 3 maybe.
Yeah. Anyway, you asked me what I thought of the episode?
Correct.
Yeah, well, I'll just answer that now. I liked it. I thought both of these were pretty solid episodes. The mystery plot was one of those ones where I wasn't super invested in it, but the fact that it was Emerson and Olive hanging out and doing it, which I don't think we see very often, made it more fun. And then I thought that the Chuck's dad stuff was, again, very stressful, but this time stressful in a way where I could more easily manage it and enjoy it. So overall, I liked the episode.
Right. The stress of this episode in there doesn't make you want to weep. It's not just like crawl into a hole and be sad.
It's more like kind of classic TV tense plot stress.
Yeah.
than it is like
It's
existential, maybe everyone who's ever loved me has lied to me kind of stress.
yeah, this is where most of my takes for about Charles came from, like him yelling at Ned and having all these conversations about like letting me be free and live my life.
Hmm.
I believe he has the line, "I'm a ghost with an alibi as thin as a fishing line," which is a fantastic line. I think that was him.
No,
And he's just
that wasn't
nope.
him. That was David Koechner's character.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You know what? You're absolutely right because because he's dead but not dead.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that. The idea of being dead but not dead finally makes its way into an A plot.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because that's like the whole premise of the show is that you can be dead but then not dead. But having people like fake their death is another form of the magic that Ned has, except not really magic. It's just a thing you can do that requires a lot of trust and a lot of like secret keeping, which I think is interesting. Like I think first of all, just like shout outs to the makeup department for turning David Koechner from like the gym teacher that we all secretly had but not really into like scruffy sad dad.
Uh-huh.
Like just complete physical transformation. I don't know how I feel about yet another plot about like dads and sons.
Yeah.
But them working together, and it's not like, oh, like the son is like, I thought my dad was cool, but he's actually not, or something like that. Like it's not like demystifying your dad. It's more just like trying, like they're working together. They're doing crimes together.
Yeah. Well, it's not. This one's not really about like dad-son relations.
Yeah.
This one's more about the idea of David Koechner and his wife not being in love after he's been gone for forever. And like that
Right.
that has certain parallels to Chuck's situation.
Right. It's I mean it's about family. You know, it's about parents and family and relationships.
Yeah, well, specifically, like both plots in the episode are about trying to recapture a love that you had before that has now been replaced.
Right.
Or like you don't need it anymore. Like Chuck doesn't, as much as she misses her dad and wishes that they could have had that time together when she was young, she doesn't need her dad anymore.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's unfortunate, and the whole like not loving the person anymore, and I mean the wife like has another lover at that point. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Right. So it's it's dealing with really heavy stuff. It doesn't feel that like sad. I think Pushing Daisies is really really good at like the truth of the matter. The facts being these is like kind of serious, but the way it's presented to the viewer is like, oh, when this is how relationships happen. Sometimes they don't work. Sometimes marriages don't work. That's life. And kind of like eases you into accepting those things as being facts of life, which I think must be really, and I think is for me even very cathartic. To like have stress about those types of relationships, but at the end of the day, things are fine. Be like, oh, maybe this can be fine if I'm dealing with something like this.
Yeah.
Like that is, again, from the little that I've like heard and read about, Hannibal is a show that like really tries to demystify like the worry and the anxiety around dying, and the end of murder even, like turning into like, oh, getting killed, or like, and all of the worries that come from it they're not unfounded, but they're not necessarily bad things. There is a beauty to it. There is beauty to life and death. And in this case, there is like a comedy to family problems.
True.
It doesn't have to be. It's not like I don't consider this episode very depressing, to be honest with you. Other than, I mean, like the Chuck and her dad stuff is relatable and painful, but I don't think like the Merle McQuoddy stuff is particularly bleak.
Right, I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Which part? I mean, so what is there much more to say about the Chuck and her dad stuff this episode that we didn't get into last time?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think we should just revisit and rehab the conversation a little bit just to see what that brings up. I mean, the basics of it are that Ned is trying to impose his rules on Charles. And he's like, listen, if you're alive again. So first of all, Chuck doesn't tell Ned. He finds out about it at the end of the last episode.
Right.
And then they have a conversation about it. And she's like, I was going to tell you. Ned is very understanding about the whole situation, which is refreshing because I think I would have not enjoyed an episode that was about like, I'm Ned and I'm really mad at you and you're going to have to make me not mad anymore. That wouldn't have worked, although it would have been realistic. Because I think that's what happens when somebody that you love conceals something like this from you. You get upset. So even though I think Ned's understanding was a little like convenient, maybe that's okay for the sake of the plot of the episode. And he does understand what she's doing because he did keep her alive. So they have that conversation, and then Ned's like, okay, here's my rule book. Which is kind of nuts. That's sort of crazy that he has a rule book. And he's like, here's my rule book, follow all my rules, and you can be alive again. And Charles says, well, buddy, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm going to pass on these rules.
You and Chuck can't be together anymore. We're going to leave. And if we do that, I won't tell anybody about your thing. And that's the deal. And that's sort of, again, I think we talked about this last time, that's completely reasonable, his approach, in a way that's almost world breaking. Because it makes you think like, Chuck, why aren't you out of here, lady? Why are you sticking around this guy? Sure, you like him a lot, but like there are other fish in the sea who won't kill you just by touching you. So in some ways it kind of undermines the premise of the show, although you could argue that in some ways it reinforces it because it's like that's how much Chuck loves Ned.
Well, it isn't just love. Like, I think the answer to why does she stay with him, and also why have all these rules? Like, the rules include stuff like if we're in the same room, you have to make a noise that you're around and then say this, and then this is the script, basically, like very rigid and structured. And the answer to both those questions is because structure is really comfortable.
Right.
Like, even in coming back to life, Chuck would still rather just like continue to be with her childhood friend than go like so far out of her comfort zone that she like leaves him. Like he brought me back, I might as well stay with him. It's not like I owe him anything, but just like he's here and I liked him then, so I mean I guess I like him now too. He seems like a cool guy. Like, why would I change things up?
Then I guess my question to that is, am I supposed to be happy about that as a viewer? You know, I guess it's open to interpretation, but to me, that's sort of a pessimistic reason for them to be together. That it's easy or comfortable, and it seems like Chuck's dad is representative of these are the things that we always talked about and dreamed of, and when I died, you gave them up. They don't have to be given up anymore. You can do the things that we always wanted to do. And Chuck's saying, yeah, I could, but I just feel really comfortable with this dude. And so I'm going to stay with him. And it opens the question of, is being with Ned really the best thing for Chuck? I don't know the answer to that. I don't think it is, to be honest.
Yeah, this episode definitely, and I think the reason Charles works so well as a character is that he, like you were saying in the last half, he's not wrong. Nothing he's saying is like fundamentally wrong.
Right.
It's just that his intensity and the way that he feels like he is also kind of imposing a choice on her feels villainous. And because we've been following their romance the whole time, like her and Ned, that someone else coming in here and disrupting that makes them feel like textbook antagonist. So I think at the end of the episode, she chooses to stay with Ned.
Right. That's important. That it's her choice. Yeah.
Right. It's not like he begs her and she says, "All right, fine," because then that would start pushing us in the direction of like codependent relationship. Or like some sort of there's something unhealthy to the choice that they stay together. But her choosing that is like, I saw the option. I was prepared to take it, and then I didn't take it. But, she says, we have adventures here all the time. We do crazy crime stuff here every day. Every single day with Ned is an adventure.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would like to think that they will work now as a couple to keep things interesting and try to try different things.
Yeah. That's a good point.
How that manifests itself in the show, I have no idea. I mean, there aren't a ton of episodes left, so maybe it's just going to do the fairy tale thing and be like, and then they loved each other and they were happily ever after. And I guess that's fine.
Probably.
I really don't have much else about the Merle McQuoddy stuff. I mean, I think the son's performance is pretty good, especially for a child of that age.
Yeah, I thought he was great.
I think the scene where he's dangling off a lighthouse was terrifying. like, not that I have a fear of heights, but just like falling into water is also really just scary. And the way he like falls over, where he's trying to pull something and then just tips instantly, and it's like it's very like, I like my fists were clenched for a lot of that scene.
Yeah. For me, the Merle McQuoddy plot is just funny. It's just a nice, easy, funny plot. Olive and Emerson working off each other is just enjoyable. There's that moment where he's explaining his thinking and he's doing like hand gestures, and then Olive is just copying his hand gestures as he does it. The fact that they're wearing those rain ponchos that Olive got them that have like fruit on them for the whole time. They do a chest bump, and they're just so wildly different in height that I don't know. It's fun.
Yeah, they are such a fun combination because like everything about them is different. Every single thing about them is completely different.
Yeah.
And she's just so full of optimism and energy, and he's just like, I'm here to do work. Let's please do work. But he's not like denying her attempts to have fun. He's just like, let's, we're doing a thing together. There's still like a cooperation to their relationship that I like.
Yeah.
I had a note briefly about mostly the Olive stuff. I'm starting to like Olive a lot more. I think she's gone through the most changes of any character in the show. In terms of like how I think about her.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Because God, the thing that wouldn't come out of my head at the beginning of the show was like, man, Olive's just going to suck. She's just going to be bad. That's going to be how she is for the show. And like, that's just going to be unfortunate. And she has really turned around, not just in the optimism, but like, even in last episode when she's thinking about Ned and doing her whole musical number, like her pain and her way of dealing with things is really, really good. It's really powerful. And
there's a lot of strength in Olive that the way that she was being framed initially as this sort of doe-eyed, I love Ned so much character, I didn't anticipate that she would have, that she would have this sort of like stability and strength, I think is the right word.
Yeah. Right. I kind of want to like go back and either listen to those our old episodes or just watch the first episode again.
Yeah.
And think about that in the context of like, well, she's going to go somewhere. Like,
yeah, and see if that changes the way that you view it.
Yeah, I think all the best character arcs in TV are the ones where you can go back and go like, oh, they were seeding this for a while, or they were, like it was kind of awkward for a reason for a while, and then it got better.
Right.
I have some stray notes.
Okay, let's do it.
The Charles calling his daughter Button all the time is really cute. What is less cute is that he's using the extremely 2008 reference / argument of being with him and going on adventures with him is like cake, and hanging out with Ned is pie, and cake is better than pie.
Oh my god, it was so forced.
I was like, stop. This was funny for 1 year. Stop. I was in middle school. Get out of here. Pushing Daisies. Don't do this joke. Like it's just because it's couched in like the most serious plot of the series. Like,
yeah, it really didn't work for me.
And he keeps doing it like to the last minute. He's just like, cake has layers and pie is just crust and the fruit. And I'm like, no, but pie is what are you saying? That's not even true.
Yeah.
You don't know how pie works.
I was imagining that in that scene where he's like hugging her and he's like, this is the choice you have to make, cake or pie. She sort of is looking off in the middle distance. And I was just thinking that in her head, she's like, I can't stay with my dad. He makes such terrible metaphors. This is not convincing at all.
He references really bad 2008 memes. Now he's gonna talk. Next thing he's gonna talk about like Fred, or like I'm a fire in Malaysia, and you're like, no, but Mr. Charles, please decease. I did type in 2008 memes just to make sure I was absolutely right in those, and I was good.
Yeah, you hit a certain sweet spot there.
Sort of a sweet spot between cake and pie. Hey
yo.
Better to have loved and lost than to be you.
Yeah, that's a fun kind of angle of the Olive Emerson plot, is that there's this whole society of women who are widows who hang out with each other, and she's being all superior to Olive because Olive doesn't have a dead husband. Yeah, I like that. That's one of those things where, a tenet of comedy, like making a comedic scene work, is taking a sensibility that someone would have in one situation and giving it to them in a completely different situation. So like she has the sensibility of like the popular girl in school, but she's a widow. And so that the dissonance there is very funny.
Right. You can switch the setting and have that, or switch the context and have it be way funnier.
Yeah, and that's what that plot does.
Yeah. I like that line. I wrote that it felt like the show kind of skipped its third act in the way that it was like, but also they're doing crimes and it's maybe the son's fault, but also no one's dead, but there's also infidelity. Like it kind of collapses on itself in its third act in a way that felt really convoluted to me. In a way I didn't love.
Yeah, it seemed like they had to rush. They had to rush through certain things to justify it being the friend and not the guy. Because they get to the guy, I don't remember his name, but the family who owns everything, and he was having an affair with the lighthouse with Nora McQuoddy. They suspect him, and then they talk to him, and it's like, it wasn't me. And then out of nowhere, Emerson's like, but she wasn't the only one that you were having an affair with, huh? That sort of seemed like it came out of nowhere, but it was fine. Like it felt sudden in the way that sometimes like a Scooby-Doo episode will feel sudden.
Yeah.
You're like, I didn't think it was Old Man Withers, but I'm willing to accept that.
If you guys got there, then I'm willing to get there, right?
Yeah.
And then I have a line another line I just really loved, which was, I think this was Chuck to Ned, but correct me if I'm wrong. We're so together the electrons couldn't get between us.
Oh man.
It's so good.
I loved that. Oh, I loved that line.
I need to deliver that to somebody I love someday. That's such a good line.
Oh, it's so sweet.
Every once in a while, it was her to him, right?
Yeah.
Every once in a while, their relationship just like gets there, and it just into these like really beautiful, small, profound moments.
And she's just so real with it. That's what sells it.
Yeah.
Like there are, thousands of people who could do that role, and if they said that line, it would sound so stupid.
Yeah, it's just corny as hell.
Yeah, but when she says it, it's like, yes, you're a real person saying that.
Yeah.
I can just imagine what it would feel like for a real person to say that to me. Yeah. And it makes me want to cry. It's so sweet.
It's the thing I love about Pushing Daisies. It just hits you with those lines every once in a while that you're like, oh,
oh, I felt a real emotion.
Real life.
That wasn't it wasn't like a TV emotion. That was a real life thing.
Yeah, that's the definition of real life for sure.
Yeah.
Did you have any other notes?
Yeah, I've got a few. Somebody towards the beginning of the episode says, we are spittin' pissed about... Oh, it's Lily, I think. She says, we're spittin' pissed about being served up a steaming plate of door.
Yeah.
Because like that's Ned shut the door on her or something.
No way that line came out in one take.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like too complicated.
She had to like walk down the hall and walk back kind of thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah, the dad, I think I said this last half, but the dad with the mummy man get up is just really creepy. I mean, that's all that's really positioning him as an antagonist is what you were saying before. Like, it's costuming and it's the perspective that we already have because we already like Ned. And it's like some of the intensity of the way that he's doing certain things.
Yeah.
Position him as an antagonist. Like him showing up at the pie hole counter unprovoked and just sitting there reading the newspaper. That was scary. That felt like a thriller movie moment.
I'm going to just embarrass myself a teensy bit.
Yeah.
In college, for a creative writing class, I wrote a short like scene. We had to like write a scene. And I wonder if I still have this, but it was like two characters in a diner, like had just closed. And basically I had just watched the Fargo TV series and I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah. That's
and it was
good.
just
That's
like
how you should write when you're starting to write.
I was just like, I want to it's just like he's an old guy and there's like a girl behind the diner and then like one of them pulls out a gun but nobody shoots the gun. It's just like a threat of violence and then like they like walk out and it's really intense and scary.
Yeah.
And that was every time something scary happens in the pie hole, I think of that dumb short story that I wrote many years ago.
I think you let me read that, right? At some point.
Probably.
I think you did.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Home cooked justice. Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Found
nice,
it.
Nice.
No one's gonna get to see this. This is for me and Magellan only.
Yeah. That's the perks of being friends with
being
someone.
a wallflower.
Yeah, being a wallflower, and someone else is also a wallflower, and you're friends.
Minnesota love story. Also, God, this is a full. Sorry,
Goodness
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I wrote a short story in college called Pit Stop Minneapolis. It was about.
I've heard you. Yeah, you mentioned that one to me. I don't think I read that.
Yeah, I think maybe you did. I don't know.
Maybe I did. Or yeah. Oh no. I think I did.
Yeah, I think you did, and you gave me a lot of negative feedback on it.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Negative feedback's good, probably, maybe. But yeah, so this episode ends with Charles being like, peace, taking a car and just dipping.
Yeah, he's just out of there. Yeah, he's gone.
Do you think that's our end of the series arc?
Like finding him?
If this was any other show, that would be the rest of the show. But this, knowing Pushing Daisies is like relentless pacing, that's like next episode.
Yeah, I just don't know because I don't know where they figured out that they were canceled. Like, is that just the last episode? Is the first episode where they're aware that they're being canceled? Because there are a few things that they have to resolve. Like, they have to deal with the dad. They have to tell us what the hell Dwight Dixon was doing. They have to decide what happens to Chuck and Ned. Like, are they going to be able to touch each other or not? They have to decide if Lily and Vivian are going to find out Chuck's alive. Yep. Something has to happen in relation to Emerson and his daughter.
Yep.
So all of those things have to come up and be resolved. And maybe there's more Ned and his dad or Ned and his brother's stuff. I'd be okay if there wasn't more of that, because that's like the least important thing to me. But all of those things are kind of up in the air. So I don't know how it's going to get divvied up and paced. I'm just not sure.
The only answer to those things that I know is that the Emerson daughter stuff is like the last episode of the show.
Okay.
So they push it.
Yeah. I've got some more notes. Let's see. David Koechner's character, who was stranded, Merle McQuoddy, who's like stranded at sea for a long time. He is rescued by a gay cruise ship, and there's a shot where he's coming back and he's being viewed through a telescope. He's wearing a shirt that says, "I love my gay moms." It's awesome. That was really
Please,
great.
Listeners, if you can find that shirt online somewhere, please link a brother.
I was on the sidewalk the other day and I saw someone wearing a shirt that said "No New Friends" in the Friends logo font.
I've seen that shirt. I think that's super
another
good.
shirt that I want. So if we're in the business of people sending us awesome shirts,
yeah.
Honestly, that would be my dream if I could get like popular enough or famous or whatever that people would just like send me shirts that are weird so that I could wear a different weird shirt every day, that would
And then you already have
be a
so many
dream.
weird shirts.
I know, but I want, and I'd
365
want people to
bespoke
like,
shirts.
I'd want people to like write me a story of like how they found the shirt or like what it means to them, you know?
Yeah, make that dream happen, people.
Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
I was saying just send me a Redbubble link, but if you want to just send me the shirt, I can provide.
Yeah.
I can provide a PO box.
The kid paying Emerson with coins was adorable
Cute.
and also very
Super
sad.
cute. Yeah. You just reminded me of that Powerpuff Girls episode where it's like the feminist villain and she like steals all the Susan B. Anthony coins from the vault.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Oh, you have to look at it. Like we have to watch it later. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's like an actually really smart criticism of like how male or dominated that world is, despite being a show about girls. Like, yeah, it's a very good episode.
Interesting. There's a line that the son says where they're offering him pie. Ned is like, totally flat affect, like, you want some pie, a la mode. And the kid's like, lots and lots, please. Who knows when I'll get another meal without my mom to make it. And then he proceeds to like nuzzle his head in everyone's boobs.
Yeah, in Chuck's boobs and Olive's boobs, and it's like, but
yeah, chill out. Then oh my god, Emerson and Ned are having this conversation where Emerson's trying to tell Ned to kill Chuck's dad. Weirdly like bleak advice from Emerson. I don't know. I think it makes sense. Like he's very logical about Ned's power and doesn't think there should be any reason for there to be a leak in it. But he's advising Ned to kill Chuck's dad, and he's like, make it look like an accident. Trip over an ottoman. Dick Van Dyke that ass.
Like, my favorite Drake lyric.
I like that. We didn't talk about Nora McQuoddy in the morgue, like her face being melted against the lighthouse light bulb.
There's a line.
Yuck.
Oh, hell, we got a melty mouth. That's the line.
Yeah, yuck.
And then she Morse codes PCHS, and then Ned is just me being like, wow, peaches. And Emerson's like, fuck, no.
It's an acronym, bud.
Actually, it's an initialism. Thank you.
Good job. The guy who's from the Historical Society says the line, such a depressing word, diorama. It has die in it. I like Rama. That was good.
Excellent line, yep.
The organization is called Notable Widows of Papin County. That's funny. So maybe there's some widows who are just not notable enough to be in the group.
Very unimportant widows.
I was charmed by Chuck's insistence that all that was going on was that her dad was giving her first boyfriend a hard time. She's like, my dad's torturing my first boyfriend. It's normal. And it's like, yeah, Chuck, that is the metaphor on like a narrative level. Again, if we think about this show as a show about long-term relationships, but that's not really what's happening. Really what's happening is your dad and your boyfriend want the other one to go away and be dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, the metaphor for this that worked in my head was that it was about like learning to live with your in-laws.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Because the whole like, we can't just get rid of him, but he's such a drain on our resources. And like, if he just went away, we could actually live our lives. Is like kind of verbatim stuff I've heard about people who had to live with their in-laws for a long time.
Yeah. And it really is just this conflict that I think everyone goes through when they decide to commit to a long-term relationship in their adulthood, where your parents have a different view of what they think is best for you than maybe your partner. And so you have to, there's a certain point where you have to say, listen, mom and dad, I know that you love me, but you're just not in the thick of it anymore. Like you just don't understand me well enough to know what's best for me. And so I need to make this choice for myself and do what makes me happy. And it's a hard thing to do, and it's a hard thing to navigate. And this episode is talking about that. It is a little weird to me that narratively Ned is Chuck's first boyfriend.
Yeah,
I guess maybe he was her first boyfriend when they were kids. It just seems like, wouldn't she have had other boyfriends in that time that she was alive?
Well, she was super sheltered. She lived with her boring aunts and sat all inside all day listening to like language cassette tapes.
That's true. I get my reaction to that line where she said, my dad's torturing my first boyfriend. It was just, like seeing Ned's face and wondering like he's like fucked before though, right? Like
He has to have.
he's a handsome guy. Sure,
Yeah, he is.
he's a little sad all the time. Like
I do have a note. I do have a note here that does say I have a big crush on specifically Lee Pace yelling. The part where he's shouting about her dad, and I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, the cake and pie metaphor is pretty strained. That weird like barbershop quartet thing in the lighthouse. Not sure about that.
And then like Olive participates. And
the other line that melted me, so the one line at the beginning that melted me was that we're so together electrons couldn't get between us. And the other one that melted me and that I want like I want my real love of my life to say this to me, is Ned said something about her dad, like if he's willing to accept that like you want to stay with me, then he's a good dad. And she says, and you're a good man. It's like, oh, Chuck.
Bark.
Oh.
This show's gonna it's gonna do more of this, man, not less of this. It's gonna be more and more sad.
Yeah, and then it's gonna be over.
And then we're gonna be sad.
Yeah.
Two pieces of trivia I found two fun things I found while we were talking.
Yeah.
One, this episode entirely was an homage to the 1977 Walt Disney film, Pete's Dragon. Both plots concerning lighthouses. The family name of McQuoddy is similar to the town Passamaquoddy. The character of Nora McQuoddy is named after Helen Reddy's character Nora. The song Candle on the Water, which I think is the Barbershop Quartet song, is from the movie. The son's name is Elliot, which is the name of the dragon, and the villain is voiced by Jim Dale, the narrator of the show.
Oh.
So, sometimes I don't like reading that type of trivia because, like, especially at least until after I've watched the episode, because then I'm just like, I haven't seen the source material, I don't get the reference. And it makes me feel like I'm just missing something, which is like one of my biggest fears. So, but yeah, and then I also Googled the Electrons line, and I got a really good article from December 12th, 2008, which is like, what does it say? Have you paid attention to your TV shows this week? Because it's time for another edition of my Who Said That Line quote quiz.
Nah.
And it's just like the shows we watched this week. With all these different lines, like this one's from Gossip Girl, How I Met Your Mother, The Office, and I'm just remembering that the show existed contemporaneously with all these shows that I thought about but didn't watch until afterwards.
Yeah, just
like you switch from Pushing Daisies to like The Office, and that was on at the same time. That's bonk.
It's so odd. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard like thinking about positioning this show in our lives when it was on, and like what if we in ninth grade or whatever like flipped on the TV and watched Pushing Daisies. That's just weird. About. Anyway,
speaking of watching Pushing Daisies, which episodes are we watching next week?
Well, dude, we are watching 2 episodes of Pushing Daisies next week, episodes 10 and 11 of season 2. First, we're watching Season 2, Episode 10, The Norwegians. Ned, Chuck, and Emerson finally meet their match when 3 rival Norwegian detectives, played by Orlando Jones, Ivana Milicevic, and Michael Weaver, start to get in their way after Vivian hires them to investigate the disappearance of Dwight Dixon, with matters becoming increasingly complicated as Ned and Chuck try to find the missing Charles, and Olive apparently betrays the team to join the Norwegians.
Wow! That's almost a spoiler.
And then this sentence is a little much and would make more sense in the episode. The Norwegians have a van they call Mother, which the license plate states, but it is technically MILF, a mobile investigation laboratory facility.
I don't know what to think about that.
Yeah, we'll wait till we watch the episode and see what happens there. Fun.
Orlando Jones is good. He was on Mad TV. He's fantastic. I think he's very funny.
Great. Fun fact, that episode aired in December of 2008. This next one that we're watching next week, Season 2, Episode 11, aired in May of 2009.
Yikes, dude.
Can you believe that? So this show's running... The season was running from October to December, and then it takes a 5-month break for the last 3 episodes, which each air like Yeah, which are a week apart.
May 30th, June 6th, June 13th. But still.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah.
Season 2, episode 11, Window Dressed to Kill. Aaron Embry, window dresser extraordinaire for Dicker's department store, is killed, and Chuck manages to get the Pie-Hole gang on the case. Erin's fans think it was her window dressing partner, Coco Juniper, played by Constance Zimmer, who did the deed. Apparently, the two artistic minds did not always meet. Meanwhile, Ned refuses to use his zapping ability, which causes him a small crisis of identity as he tries to establish his old identity, with matters becoming further complicated when the arrival of two old friends, played by Richard Benjamin and George Segal, of Olive forces Ned to pose as her fiancé due to her having referred to him as such in her letters to them. Interesting.
Oh, that sounds like a fun one.
It does sound like a fun plot.
I'm thrilled. This is my thrilled face in case you can't see me at home. You can't. I hope. I'm looking around. I hope you can't. This is my thrilled face. Yeah, Magellan, I think it's time for us to plug it right into the plug zone.
Let's do it.
If you would like to have your email read on Chats, please consider sending it to chatspod@gmail.com. That is CHATZPOD@gmail.com. If you'd like to follow us on Twitter and send us something there, that's @chatspod, where I sometimes post if the episode is late or if it's going to be a good one, which it always is. Please also consider rating us on iTunes. That's how people hear about the show. Recommend it to people. Tell your dentist about it. Tell your podiatrist about it. Just be like, hey, do you like TV? Do you like boys talking? Maybe you can recommend you this podcast. And if you would like to support us financially, please head over to patreon.com/chatspod. Excuse me. Over there, you can shoot us a couple bucks a month, and you will get access to some bonus content.
Yes, sir.
It's very fun stuff. Magellan, where can people find you online?
Find me online on Twitter at JustAFluke. That's JUSTAPFLUKE. They can also listen to me on another podcast called Adulthood at adulthood.simplecast.fm. Alan, what about you?
I can be found on two other podcasts if you're interested. One is The Garnet Wager, that is found at scanlinemedia.com. That's where my friends Six and I discuss the Korean game show The Genius and play games. Also, you can listen to me on Fireside Friends, a monthly pop culture podcast where my friends Ryan, Katie, and I talk about the stuff we love and why we love it. So, peep those, please and thank you. Thank you also for listening to this episode of Chats, a television podcast. Keep on living.